I've got a white paper that goes along with this. There's about 10 copies there, so first people to grab them afterwards can have them. Good afternoon, welcome back. My Twitter handle is one of the ones listed on there, Info Racer. It's become pretty obvious why that's my nickname in just a moment. And a little bit of background, that's one of the books I've written, that's that paper. I've got a blog, Information Management, Life and Petrol, because I'm really keen on motorsport and motor racing. And that's what I race in one of the UK championships. Anybody know what that is? Ooh, almost, yeah. It's a Lotus 7 replica. It's a Westfield. So it's 2.9 Gs in the corner. So my neck, as I keep telling my wife, from the neck up, I'm really fit.
She wouldn't agree.
You can't read all that, but I do quite a lot of presenting. Who's sat through any of the DAMA UK webinars that we've run recently? Okay, so I'm the face to a lot of those presentations over the last few months, and we're going to be doing some more. We've been going through the disciplines of the DMBOK, and we've run through a lot of those. For those of you who've missed it, they look great.
They're online and available.
And they're online and available if you want to get the recordings as well. So for those of you who came along, well done. Weren't they great? Thank you. And there's a bunch of papers and books that I've read. The point of that is that you get the slides, I believe, you get the slides afterwards, so you can get the links, or if there's any of the presentations that particularly fancy, let me know, and I can point you to the appropriate slide shares. They go back several years. I don't know exactly where every single one of them is. Okay, so these are kind of somewhere between full fact talks and lightning talks, aren't they? For 25 or so minutes. And this one today, information is at the heart of all architectures. Well, is it? So here's an initial kind of premise. Data drives the business. I think nobody would disagree that data does drive the business. We've got lots and lots of key business decisions and queries that get asked, and you can just about read some of those things. How many customers have we got? What's the performance in such and such a region? What products drive the best revenue? I'm doing a lot of work in the pharmaceutical world at the moment. Is anybody here from pharmaceutical or life sciences? What company?
No, it's on it as a consultant.
Oh, okay. So I've been doing stuff in places like Takeda and GSK and Celgene and places like that. Boy, if you think that you've got information management challenges in financial services and oil and gas, which is probably where I hitherto work mostly, you ain't seen anything to do in the pharmaceutical world. It's mind-blowing. It's absolutely mind-blowing. And of course, the implications of getting things wrong, it's pretty important in all industries. Doubly so in life sciences, because not only do you lose money, waste resources, decrease efficiency, put the company at risk, but also you can end up killing people. So, and that's a sort of a fairly unique implication. If anybody really wants to know, ask me over the coffee break, because I had to sadly find out about this. The data issues to do with stereochemistry, what happened with thalidomide back in the 50s and 60s. That, fundamentally, that was an issue about communication between R&D and production.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. So I've got we could abandon this talk and I can tell you the whole thing about stereoisin and stereochemistry now, but that was an issue. That was a big issue back then. So so what's the so what behind that is that data, I think we all would agree, data is incredibly important, but is it treated as being important? Is it is it recognised as being pervasive throughout the organisation? I'm sort of posing the question here, yeah, well actually, is it pervasive throughout the organisation, or is it just us lot? You know, and our sort of self-aggrandizement saying, yeah, data's the best thing since sliced bread, and believe me, and nobody understands me. So that's what I'm trying to answer here. So behind all of these questions, you know, is something that we might call a data model. We might not openly call it a data model, but there's some form of definition, some form of taxonomy, and that's going to hold stuff like, what's the definition of one of these things? What are the business rules of one of these things? You know, what do you mean by one of these things? And it's not just me who says data is important, but this guy, has anybody heard Joe Peppard speak before? Joe Peppard from the European School of Management and Technology. I love this quote. This is one you can go and kind of steal and use in your presentations a lot, because it makes our case very well. Yeah, data errors can cost a company millions of dollars, alienate customers, suppliers and business partners, and make implementing new strategies difficult or even impossible. The very existence of an organisation can be threatened by poor data. And they're doing research right now, and I've been providing some input to that, to illustrate the point that organisations can actually be brought to their knees by poor data. Many of you, I suspect, will know this chap. Do you know Ken Orr from the Cutter Consortium? This is a very well quoted phrase. I like it, not least of which is many years ago I lost a good friend who idiotically drove his car into a tree because he couldn't see, and it kills you basically, because trees don't move no matter how big your car or your truck is. And this, I think we'd all recognise this if we drive on British roads in the winter, you know, as the salt comes up. But, you know, ultimately, poor data quality is like dirt on the windscreen. You may be able to drive for a long time with slowly degrading vision, but at some point you either have to stop and clear the windscreen or risk everything. And the risk everything is, you know, don't go hit a tree. So, you know, I've been guilty of that in the past. I don't know if you guys are. I'm not going to ask for volunteers. It's sort of, you know, peering through, not having scraped. I'm seeing a lot of smiles here. Not having scraped the ice fully away. You know, not having got the, you know, the washer jets defrosted, and that spray, that horrible salty spray appears on your windscreen. But this is really true, and this is the situation that we face with data quality and the way in which we're managing data in most of our organisations, that we've just got by. You know, we perhaps haven't had those compelling, massive data disasters. You know, some organisations have, not all of them. You know, some of them, I hate it actually when people talk about, you know, the burning platform, because working in oil companies a lot, they kind of don't use that phrase. Well, I guess why, because they really have them. So talk about horror stories or data disasters, don't talk about burning platforms. So yeah, we've got by. We've had a few heroes who just kind of you know, saved the day in the last few minutes, and that's the situation that this, you know, that this bit is really referring to, is just getting by. So we've got to do something at some point or other. And you know, here's a few examples putting, you know, information in context. So if we're just talking about a really simple thing, actually I had a version of this that started talking about what's called therapeutic compound in the pharmaceutical world, but I ripped that and decided I'd just do customer. Okay. So just thinking of the notion of customers, you know, you might have your business exec saying, you know, I'd like a report showing all of our customers. You know, the DBA. Anybody here a DBA? Anybody been a DBA? So you're all reformed characters now. Yeah, okay. So yeah, the DBA would say, well, which customer database do you want me to pull it from? You know, we've got 25. One of my pharma clients right now, jokingly, he said, you know, we're so committed to master data that we've got our product information in 5 master data systems. So, yeah. Okay, so there's the technical side, and then we might have the data architect saying, by the way, all the databases store customer information in a different format. It's cust NM, or it's cust last num, or it's customer name, and then you get the salespeople saying, well, to us, a customer is somebody who might buy a product, whereas somebody else, service, a customer, a person's not a customer unless they've got a maintenance account. Accounting, a customer is a person who's got, who actually owns a product. You might have other people in sales. The customer is somebody who's purchased a product. And HR, customers are actually our internal people. So all of those definitions. Now, rather than a show of hands of who's not seen that problem? Anybody really not seen that problem? It just exists, and I think most organisations absolutely kid themselves that one department is different to another department, is different to another department, and what is it? Is it the three wise monkeys? To see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. Okay, they've kind of got the blinkers, they've got their little blinkers on because it's in that too hard. That sort of too hard to do category. I sort of intellectually know that it needs to be done, but it's too hard to get my hands around it right now. So they muddle on and have customer master data in Division A and customer master data in Division B and customer master data in Division C, and believe because they've got the words master and data somewhere strung together that they've now got a solution. They've got the customer data governance group in Division A, Division B, and Division C. Believe me, I've worked with big organisations, some whom I know are in this room, represented in the room, that have got data governance programmes, and part of their metrics are to make sure my individual project is optimised. So how does that work? When data governance should be looking across the organisation. So here, the so what behind all of this is that these common concepts are being used all over the organisation, and very rarely do we do anything about it. Now, in many organisations, the way in which 20th, 21st century organisations have moved on, data now is the core product in the business. So if you think, who's in financial services? I've seen a few, because I knew the guys from HSBC and a few others now. In years gone by, we had, we used to do bartering, whatever, 200-300 years ago, there was physical products that are bartered, and now you have the promise to pay. What's written on the banknotes is a promise to pay. But we don't actually, in our financial services institutions, we don't ship bundles of notes or blocks of gold or anything around. What is it that we ship around? I know you have to have reserves, so I take that point. There has to be a certain amount of reserves. But the product that gets shipped around is data. And actually some of the products themselves are not just the abstract representation of data. The products are data. What is a derivative? That's an abstract representation of a money thing. So in this sort of mini lightning talk about thing, my premise here is that data is the core product, not so much bundles of notes or gold bars. I accidentally, it was for Lee, I was going to put the gold chocolate blocks in there and see if anybody spotted it. She's in the front row, she would do. So also, if you look at the pharmaceutical world, then a tremendous amount. Sure, there is real product research, but more and more and more and more is being done in this kind of thing, in computational chemistry. Less and less, real. Either kind of animal and human testing. There still is, obviously, testing, and that, and there's a necessity to do that. But a tremendous amount more is being done by computational models. What's that? That's not physical product. That again is data. And you could go through many industries say, data itself is, if it's not the core business asset, it's certainly up there as being one of the major business assets. So if we carve up what I'm calling architecture here, and incidentally this is not meant to be a, here's the gospel of TOGAF or DODAF or FIDAF or ZAFMAN, it's just a very generic, here's 4 disciplines of architecture. So let's have a look at some architecture disciplines. So firstly, if we look in the area of business architecture, here's some of the typical things that you see in business architectures. We run classes to go through this, 2 and 3 day classes just to do objective goals, motivation, modelling and so on. Okay, but you're probably familiar with at least the words, if not the details behind how these kind of disciplines work. So what are they? What are the things in business architecture? They're telling you stuff like, what is it we're trying to accomplish? The so what, why is it important? What's our motivation? How do we go about measuring it? Who's involved? Organisations, actors, participants, partner organisations. So those are the typical things that you see in a business architecture. There's nothing radical about that. Ooh. And you're right, some of the things didn't copy over quite right. We'll see how the rest of the builds go with it. But there's an example. So that might be just an example of a statement, a business objective. The company is undertaking a radical approach to enhance customer service experience, blah, blah, blah. So there's some kind of goal statement. If we look next at, say, business process architecture, we have these kind of things, value chain analysis, maybe high-level business processes and those decomposed business process models, and ultimately workflow models coming out here with the steps and the deeply actors. So what are those things? Value chain, the process or activities that add value to an article or a service in your organisation. That's the dictionary definition of a value chain. High-level business processes, not yet decomposed into sub-processes or workflows. And those high-level business processes, they're not IT systems. They are the things that may or may not become IT systems. They may be done manually. And then workflow models, the series of steps and the actors and the handoffs involved. Whoosh. And there's a very simple example of a swim lane, of a swim lane model where we've got 2 actors. Okay, and in this case they're not individuals, because you don't name individuals, you name roles. So customer services and finance, and 3 processes or process steps, and then a handoff to a 4th process step. Now, even if you don't know the business process modelling kind of standards or notation, this is sort of like BPMN, but it's easy enough to understand. Okay? The lines represent handoffs or data flow, the boxes represent processes, something triggers it, something finishes it. That's about it. There you go, you don't need to do a BPMN course now. Apart from the other 150 artifacts. Okay. There's other 2 more architecture disciplines. So if we looked at sort of applications, system architecture, we've got the high-level systems, mapping of systems to processes to systems, data to data stores. We have business services, create a customer account, debits, debits the account, and then we have the presentation services, or some people like to call those the use cases. So these are the definitions, manual or IT systems, cross-references in the business service that could be triggered to complete a business event. Here's a little example. So this is an example in the modelling approach of a thing that's called a business service. So in this case, it's a business service called Credit Check the Customer. It's got some input stuff, it's got some steps, and it's got some output stuff. Okay. So that's a business service. And then use cases, how does an actor or actors complete a process by interacting with the system, okay, in order to get a service delivered to them. And that is a use case, and there's about 400 different methodologies for use cases, but the one I personally prefer is this, which is the when-then use case approach. Is anybody familiar with that? Did anybody else use that one? It's really quite easy, when something happens, then system or response is X. Okay, so use cases. And then we have information architecture, and to this audience, I don't really need to say a lot about information architecture. What is it? It's the things of significance about which the organisation wishes to know or hold, together with the facts about them. And the organisation, when you get down to the physical level, the organisation may record, may maintain records of those, and of course processes will act upon them. So that's your 101 of these architecture types. And wowee, what's the sorts of artifacts, data models, databases, different levels of data models. Some of you have been victims of my 3-day data modelling course. Wrong. Some of you have enjoyed my 3-day but here's just example. Here's just some examples of the artifacts. So, just carving that down another way. Well, that build obviously didn't work terribly well, but look, we've highlighted highlighted all the things that we should be highlighting here. Customer. Okay, so customer comes up all over the place, and up here, what is it? Well, it's the noun, it's the thing of significance for the business, and in the processes, it's typically kind of verb or a verb qualifier or qualifier verb, noun, and then a qualifier. So credit check the customer. So there's lots of different ways of naming it, but the best way is saying verb, noun. Okay? Credit check customer. Okay. If we look at these ones, look, here's our good friend customer being flagged up all over the place again. What have we got in the applications architecture? We have the system, the service, such as credit check customer. So it's very similar to the business process. So a verb, noun, with or without qualifiers in there. And then if we look at the use cases, we have the actor and the verb and the noun. So you have customer inserts card. So there's a bit of a rigour and a discipline being built up here. And last but by no means least, our data stuff, not surprisingly, looks a bit like data models, or be they logical, conceptual enterprise, or physical data models. So what is the point with all of that? So the point with all of that is my premise, and that's what this goes in to talk about in a lot more detail, is that information really is at the heart of all of those architecture disciplines, and that you should start with the language of the things of the business, which are the data things, and then all the other stuff comes later, the processes, the actors, the business rules. And of course, those of you who've done a lot of logical and conceptual data modelling will know that the business rules start to be drawn out during the data modelling activity. And don't go away from this saying, Chris Bradley says everything else is unimportant and data's the only thing. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that information is at the heart, and this is it, all of the other architecture disciplines use the language and the rules of the data model. And if we are being asked, where do we start? Here's a good place to start. Things first, processes later. Okay. Just by sort of way of conclusion, a few other points that I wanted to raise, and these coming up on the screen now are quotes from university syllabi, from the UK, one's from Canada, and from the USA. Okay, so you can read these, and I pulled them out. These are not from 1978. These are from 2013 and 2014 and 2015. Okay, so here's one from this one is from a UK university. The purpose of a data model is to design a relational database system. The data model is used to specify, document, and design a database. A data model is a pictorial representation of the structure of a relational database system. A data model, is the description of the objects represented by a computer system together with the properties and relationships. And ER modeling is a database design method. Those are all, I'm afraid to say, those are all quotes from modern universities. And I'm not talking about your teeny tiny toy towns. These are big, well-known universities. And this just bugs the hell out of me. So, bear this in mind. It's absolutely not true. It's a bit like me saying, I showed you that picture of my car. It's a bit like going up to somebody who doesn't know about cars and saying, a car is for driving around a racetrack. One person, no roof, driving around a racetrack as fast as you possibly can. That is what a car is for.
I've seen you drive.
Without falling off, keeping it on the black stuff. So it would be fair to say one of the many things you can use a car for, there's specialised ones that do this, is taking around the racetrack. But none of these university courses said that. It very much was data modelling. It's all about physical database design, and that's actually the other bit that I put in this paper because I had a real rant. My son's doing it. Say it.
So it's not the be-all and end-all.
It's absolutely. It's not the be-all and end-all.
It's the overall system.
Absolutely. Absolutely right. So it's there about understanding the fundamentals of the information, and you may or may not go on to create a physical data model at the end of it. And you've probably heard me and other people talk about this at great length before. So that's sort of my reaction to seeing those. And I had great pleasure. My son's doing a PhD at Bath University at the moment in computer science and artificial intelligence. And I went in to do a guest slot, and I had topic A to talk about, and I started off with topic B, which is you're teaching data modelling wrong. And it wasn't on the agenda. Right. So we'll skip that. So the absolute sort of final point is just a thing. This is where I'm sort of showing you lunchtime. So we all talk about, I think we all talk about, data is an asset of the organisation. Has anybody ever heard that before? Okay, so data is an asset of the organisation, but is the data asset really different? I'm sorry I missed this morning's sessions, the great waiting room at the embassy. But, so you had a talk on data is oil.
Data is the new oil.
Data is the new oil. Let's see if you agree with what I'm about to put up here, because I've got oil as an example. Having done chemical engineering, but it's nothing to do with that. So here's the little bit of analysis that I was thinking of. So let's pick a few different assets, types of assets. So we've got kind of data down at the beginning, and I've got a number of categorizations, areas that I'm going to sort of analyse it by. So one at a time. So is this asset copyable? Can you actually copy it? Okay. And broadly speaking, I've got a little asterisk by intellectual property. You can't legally copy it, and obviously you can't legally copy money. Okay, so data is one of the ones, and unfortunately we all do this, don't we? We all have these little things in our pockets. And data's copied right, left, and centre. So there's a thing. Data's copyable.
So are people with clothes copyable.
Okay, in the real world.
All right, so Dolly's a sheep. She was still clothed.
Every time I go through this, I can sort of go, partly in some of these. But using the asset depletes it. So, you burn the oil, it goes, you use the money, you use the blood. People, well, you could say people kind of get burnt out by being used a lot. I put no. Property, physical property, it degrades, over time. Materials get used. IP, you can reuse intellectual property time after time after time, so it doesn't get depleted by use. And obviously, we all know we can use data, and we can use it again, and we can use it again, and we can use it again. Next category, is it easy to ascribe a monetary value to it? So, people, the one that people have sort of raised contention over before was people, but I'm saying no, it's not easy to ascribe a monetary value to people. And whilst there is talk going on about monetizing information, it's not easy to ascribe a monetary value to it. In 20 years' time, maybe it'll be more sort of de rigueur. I remember the arguments years and years ago, because I'm old enough to remember this, and I was a partner at one of the big accountancy-based consulting computers, and I ran PwC for years. And the talk 20 odd years ago was this idea of creating a balance sheet entry called the value of goodwill. What a joke, that's never going to happen. And it's pretty much standard now, yeah. So, my confident prediction is after I've retired, that monetising a monetary value of data on the balance sheet will be a lot more common. But for now, I'm saying no, because it's not that easy. Is the asset real or abstract? Pretty obviously, data's abstract, because the data is not actually a bucket full of money, or a bucket full of chemicals. And last but by no means least, do you have to process it? Do you have to do stuff with it to yield value, or does it just have sort of real value in its own right? Crude oil, yeah, it's got some value, in its own right, but you don't actually use crude oil in its own right. You process it to turn it into petroleum. I'll give you the original, mate. you have to put it in a fractionating column. You have to add things to it. Money's got real value, and data, not surprisingly. The contention here is that you've got to do stuff with data. Just saying, you've got this number of customers is like, so what? You've got to do something. You've got to do something with it. So there's my little sort of mini analysis, and I'm sure we could run workshops and pick holes and redo this time after time. But now I've kind of categorised. I've categorised all of these by saying, so which ones have got the same characteristic as the data ones? And according to Chris's methodology, people is the closest. People are the closest. Is the closest.
People are
the closest. But
I disagree on some of those answers.
yeah, I'm sure. I don't think I've ever done a presentation where you haven't disagreed with something.
I agreed on certain stuff. I know, he is nasty.
But what's the big, the big point behind that is, I think the answer is yes. I think the data asset is different.
And so are all the others.
And so we're all, of course they're all different. That's the point. This is my point, is that there's no one size fits all, is that they are different. So that's the punchline.
Is that your punchline?
No, I can tell you about joking, if you love it. Okay. So here's the summary. Summary, information is different to most of the other assets that we encounter, but they are different themselves to the other assets. All of the business depends on information, to a greater or lesser degree. In some cases, the product really is information. Quality and management of information can affect the very existence of an organisation. So ignore this at your peril. That end. That's basically it. So the better.
Saudi Arabian sound.
No, I
He
think
wouldn't know, he's still in the
you'd be dead.
embassy.
Yeah, if that was Saudi sound, I think you'd be dead. So the real punchline is this. Two relational tables walk into a bar, and a view comes up to them and says, "Hey, can I join you?"
I can't believe you haven't heard that before.
And with that, I'll hand that back to Julia. So thank you very much. Oh, I don't think it's liquid broil, isn't it? Yes, it's liquid broil. There's, I don't know, there's about 8 or 10 copies of them.
I might sneak one and I can use it for my boss. And if all else fails, roll it out really tight and stab it.
We'll get another job.
Have we got time for...
Question. So,
Oh, sorry, what's the time for questions?
John, question.
Yeah.
Well, it's actually more of a point. It said use doesn't deplete data asset. I absolutely totally disagree, because if you say use some data for a model, for a marketing campaign, you will deplete that data because that marketing campaign will have a finite life, because you won't be able to repeat it. So you need to keep replenishing your data source to get new customers. So I think that's quite a dangerous thing to say, because you have to. It does deplete because it gets tired with use, and you see this particularly if you're doing customer.
So what we're saying, so that experience slide, we're going to chop it apart.
The grade is probably the value of data.
The has value going forward. So, for instance, the pharmaceutical industry, if you did a survey in 1992 and in 2015 you are trying to launch a drug in a particular area of the country, that is something the regulator might ask for. You know, you're looking back at 1992 data, what's the delta between the two? So it does have value.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I think the key thing with the use, the depleting use, is sort of the match analogy. You strike the match, you can't strike it again. You can look at this data and you can look at this data and you can look at this data 5,000 times. The value of the analysis might degrade, but the actual data itself doesn't degrade.
Got time for one more question?
The soft skills.
Yeah, that's the next one.
My question really on the campaign files, really. I mean, if you kept the historic campaign files, you can use them exclusion files going forward, and then you can model those campaign files back. So, you know, keeping the data is, we find quite useful.
Yes, keep it going.
Okay, Chris. Thank
Right,
you.
thank you, Chris.
Thank you.